Pam Rodney White, Vice Governor for the Eastern Canada and Caribbean District, and I will be your host for this event this evening. It is my utmost pleasure to welcome you to this forum. First, let me acknowledge the President of PASS Kiwanis International President, Jane Erickson, ECNC Governor Anthony Hiley, district leaders, past governors, current district board of trustees, current lieutenant governors, 2023-24 class of lieutenant governor-elect, club presidents and secretaries, PLG committee chairs, ECNC PLG committee chair, Karen Williams, and all our fellow Kiwanians and guests. It is so good to have you here on this call. Your presence is an indication that you have our noble organization and its members at heart. Earlier this year, District Membership Chair PG Phil Rossi threw out a challenge at me to host a forum to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of the KIN District Club program. Today, we are here, not only to listen to our panelists as we field them questions, hear their responses, but also to give you, our attendees, an opportunity to ask questions and voice your opinion. For the next 2 hours, we will delve into the challenges facing clubs with the criteria and how they maneuver or don't maneuver them. Our panelists this evening are LG Nicole Plantier, LG Hugh Reed, LG Mary Ellen Trimble, District Trustee Leighton McKnight, DLG Beth Thompson, and past District Trustee Ralston Nunes. Our moderator will be past Governor Phil Rossi. As we are guided by our moderator, or later on, we will adhere to our instructions this evening. And so, as we continue, we would like to invite our hardworking ECNC Governor, Anthony Hiley, to bring us greetings at this time. Governor Anthony, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, VG Pam. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And of course, the pleasure is bigger because we are going to discuss some very, very important matters, some items that I also have some problems with. So I think tonight, hopefully, we can have some light on this topic, which we are going to discuss. It's not easy. I start telling you it is not easy, but I'm sure that the panelists that we have here, and also the other people that have joined the forums, can shed some light on these topics. I wish you all a lot of wisdom. I wish you all a fruitful meeting. I'm anxious to sit and hear what are the various ideas and the various, let's say, insights, what the panelists and the forum members have to present. All the best, and I'm sure that this will be a very, very successful evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor Anthony. I know you have a lot of interest here, and we're sure to take away some valuable information this evening. At this time, I want to acknowledge and also introduce our moderator for the evening, none other than past Governor Phil Rossi. I'm not going to go into all the details of his CV because we want to ensure that we give you, our attendees, all the time possible this evening. So PG Phil is a past president of the Kiwanis Club of Ottawa. He's currently the district chair for membership growth and retention. He is also the membership chair for the Kiwanis Club of Ottawa. He's treasurer for the Kiwanis Club of Kanata Stittsville. And without further ado, I am handing over the proceedings now to PG Phil Rossi.
Thank you, Vice Governor. Thank you very much.
You're
Good
welcome.
afternoon, my fellow Kiwanians. Can everyone hear me? If not,
Yes.
please let us know. All right.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Well, this is a very exciting day today, something that Vice Governor Pam and I have been planning for many months now to put together a panel and with some specific questions to discuss the distinguished program for our district, past, present, and future. And with that in mind, I would like to start, if I may, with some house rules. And I'm just going to open my screen and put a document on the screen for us to review. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
All right, great. So we'll call the meeting to order. Please mute your microphones unless you've been asked to speak directly. If possible, use the raise hand process for questions. How to do that is to make sure your screen is available. You have instructions on the bottom, and you can press the reaction key or button on the bottom of your screen, and you'll see a raise hand, or you should see a raise hand indicator. If you can click that, it will bring you to the top of the screen so that we will be able to monitor the chat as well as any questions that arise during the presentation and during the panel discussion. In addition, today, we are asking DLGE Sharon Williams of Jamaica, Division 23 East, and Chair of our PLG committee. Sharon, are you on the call?
Very present. Very present.
Excellent.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, DLGE Sharon. I would ask you to monitor the chat for us. And
Sure.
If there's anything specific, you can interrupt us at any time to interject with a question from the chat, or you can wait before the first musical interlude, and after the musical interlude has concluded, we'll also go back to the chat.
Sure. Okay, PG.
Thank you very much. All right, great. So, number two, I would like to introduce today our panelists in a little bit more information than what Vice Governor Pam gave us. The first panelist is District Trustee Leighton McKnight. Leighton, many of us know Leighton, but so for those of you that don't, Leighton is a member of the Kiwanis Club of North St. Andrew in Division 23C, Jamaica Central. He's been a member of Kiwanis since 1990 for over 33 years. Our second of six panelists is past District Trustee Ralston Nunez. Past District Trustee Ralston is a member of two clubs, Kiwanis Club of Kingston and Kiwanis Club of Stony Hill in Division 23 Central, Jamaica Central. Ralston has been a member of Kiwanis since 1996 and as well is a certified club opener and has opened a number of new Kiwanis clubs in Jamaica. Welcome, Ralston. Nicole Plantier. Nicole Plantier is currently the Lieutenant Governor for Division 27C Guadeloupe. Nicole has been a member since 2005. She's also a certified club opener and has opened a number of new clubs. In addition, Nicole is a past district trustee of our district. Our fourth panelist is Lieutenant Governor Hugh Reid. Hugh Reid is a member of North St. Andrew in Division 23C, Jamaica Central. He is also our class president for this year, 2022-23, and has been a member of Kiwanis since 1990 for over 33 years. welcome LG Hugh. Our fifth panelist is DLG Beverly Thompson. DLG Bev is a member of two clubs, Kiwanis Club of New Kingston in Division 23 East, Surrey South, and Barbican in Division 23 Central, Jamaica Central. And she has been a member of Kiwanis for over 34 years, since 1989. Welcome, DLG Bev. Good to see you. Our last but not least panelist is DLG Mary Ellen Trimble, who is currently the LG. She's in the second year of her term of Division 9, which stands for Maple Leaf, the Greater Toronto Area. Mary Ellen is a member of two Kiwanis clubs, East York and Uxbridge North Durham in Division 9. Mary Ellen Trimble is a certified club opener and a Kiwanian since 1998 for over 25 years. And may I add that today, Lieutenant Governor Mary Ellen Trimble has just opened another new club this year, the Kiwanis Club of Scarborough, Toronto. Congratulations, Mary Ellen. Now, number 3, if I may, if you'll read with me, the second object of the 6 objects of Kiwanis is to encourage the daily living of the golden rule in all human relationships. That being said, Kiwanis protocol, respect, and dignity will be maintained at all times. Conduct unbecoming of a Kiwanian will not be tolerated. Now, I know that this is going to be a touchy subject for many of us to discuss. It's near and dear to our hearts, and I know some of our emotions will come out during the discussion, but let's maintain our Kiwanis decorum. Thank you, everyone, for this in advance. Each panelist will be asked a set of prepared questions to respond to, and the responses by each panelist will be timed to no more than 3 minutes for each question. Following the prepared questions, each panelist will be asked to summarize his or her position, including any recommendations about the distinguished program, to Vice Governor Pam Rodney-White. Questions from the Zoom audience will then be allowed, and time limits will also be applied to no more than 3 minutes discussion. Only one question will be allowed by the same Kiwanian. Any exceptions will be at the discretion of the moderator, Phil Rossi. This meeting is being recorded and will be published on the district website, which is kiwanisecnc.org. Are there any questions before we proceed? Hearing none, I will share the screen now and we'll start the panel discussion. Can everyone see this? All right. So
Yes.
let's start. Yes. Thank you. Let's start with first question. What would Kiwanis, as you see it today, be without a distinguished program? And I'm going to go in the order that I introduced the panelists. Let's start with District Trustee Leighton McKnight. Leighton, question number 1. What do you think of the program and how would you see our Kiwanis world?
Thank you very much, PG Phil, and good afternoon, my fellow panelists and Kiwanians. I hope you are hearing me clearly.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. So for that question for me, I personally don't see anything wrong with a distinguished program. It's a recognition program. And I think, especially when people are working for free, recognition is very important. And even people are working, I know in sales, they have awards ceremony and all of that. And a distinguished program or recognition program helps leadership to focus on our desired goals. Now, that is not to say that there are not pitfalls and that we may have to look at tweaking it and all of that. But if we were to discontinue the distinguished program, in my mind, we'll have to find something else. All the other service organizations, I've looked at Lions, I've looked at Rotary, they all have distinguished programs under some form. They may not call it a distinguished president or so. They have Paul Harris and Melvin Jones Fellow. They have Distinguished Club of Excellence. So it's something that you'd have to find. You have to have recognition programs. So I could not see Kiwanis meeting its goals without some form of recognition, because that's what motivates people and direct them. I don't believe in giving service for awards, but I believe that if you do good service in accordance with established goal, you should be recognized. So from that standpoint, I don't think I can see Kiwanis without some kind of recognition program. So that's the way I see it. There are some challenges which I guess later on in the discussion we can mention, but I don't want to go over my 3 minutes. So I just want to leave that, because I don't think the distinguished program is the big issue. I think the issue is criteria, and some people don't agree with the criteria. So pretty much for me, I don't see Kiwanis without it or some other form of recognition program.
Thank you, District Trustee Layton, much appreciated. Past District Trustee Ralston, what would Kiwanis as you see it today be without a distinguished program?
Are you hearing me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon. Firstly, I wish to commend the conceptualizers of this forum, as it provides an opportunity for us to have robust and objective discussion on topical issues. And I would hastily recommend that we have more forums on other topics. Moderator, VG, Pam, fellow panelists, distinguished Kiwanians all. Kiwanis is about giving, and so we also want to thank each of you for giving up your Sunday afternoon for us to have this important interaction. Strength in Kiwanis is very important, and it is supposed to encourage greater service. And this is one of the strengths of a distinguished program. I think the distinguished status in its original form is really an acknowledgement of work done and a resultant show of appreciation, as my fellow panelists just said. I surmise that the program came about as a tool to encourage greater service. However, it has since been used to achieve various other motives, such as encouraging the payment of dues. And it's a very essential program, and I agree with Layton. And many times, though, we see the criteria skewed towards the business end and away from the primary purpose of giving service. And clearly, we understand that to survive, Kiwanis must be operated as a business. However, it must be recognized that we are in the business to give service. And this signal must be transmitted from the very top of the organization. I think that the distinguished program needs quite a bit of tweaking, but certainly it's not a program that I would agree to dismantle in any form. And we will get into some of what I see as the tweaking that is needed. But there are also weaknesses in the program. And one of the negatives of the pursuit of distinction can occur when a club know that they are not meeting the criteria as early as September, as early as December, and therefore they understand that they will not attain the award because they have not paid their dues. But there's something has to be there to propel them to continue working. So I want to put it up front that I agree with a distinguished program, but in another form. Thank you.
Thank you, PDT Ralston, much appreciated. Bonjour, Nicole. Nicole Plantier, de Division 27C de Guadeloupe.
Oui, bonjour, bonjour.
Oui, si vous préférez parler en français, c'est possible, mais je préfère être en anglais si c'est possible aussi.
I'm going to speak English.
Parfait. La question encore, what would Kiwanis, as you see it today, be without a distinguished program?
Good morning, everyone. As for me, I consider that the distinguished program is definitely necessary. It is a source of motivation for LGs, president in charge, officers. It helps to encourage members to go further. It helps to determine goals for the year. So I do consider that this distinguished program is really necessary. It helps you to plan your year, and you know sometimes in which path to follow or not. It's a sort of, how to say it in English, I don't know, but it's a sort of a line of to follow. That's all. So for me, and I want to add something. It has been adjusted recently, and I consider that I do not have any more grieves against this program. For me, it's good. It's quite. Of course, it could be improved, but I consider that it is quite simple right now to follow the criteria. So any club can be distinguished according to these criteria. So for me, it's good. Later, maybe I'll add some items or just change some items, but in its form, it's correct.
You're muted, PG Phil. You're muted.
Thank you, Leighton. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. Next up is Hugh Reid. Hugh, it's the questions on the screen for you. What would Kiwanis, as you see it today, be without a distinguished program? The floor is yours. LG Hugh, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
All right, sir.
Kiwanis would be a weaker, less effective volunteer movement without a distinguished program. A distinguished program is necessary. It is essential because the benefits of rewards and recognition in a voluntary movement are very, very important to motivate persons to continue to provide service. I think it is important for us to remember that we can utilize this distinguished program to steer Kiwanis into the direction that we would want it to go in terms of stronger, more engaged clubs. And therefore, the focus must be what should the criteria be under the distinguished program so that our clubs can grow, our membership can grow, and the movement can be stronger.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. DLG Bev Thompson. What would Kiwanis, as you see it today, be without a distinguished program? You're muted.
DLG Bev, you're muted. You're muted, Bev. We're not hearing you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So I have to go over all that I just said. All right. So good evening again, everyone. And of course, I'm really very happy for this occasion where we can speak in this manner about a subject that is so important. Now, I am not saying that we should be without a distinguished program because everybody who works and does, service, gives service, wants to know at some point that it's recognized. And so our achievements, the program enables us to measure our achievements. So I would say yes, but I would like to see where this program is tweaked, as my fellow Kiwanian said, is tweaked and becomes more service focused. Because each year our presidents, I know in Jamaica, they look forward to seeing what is the distinguished program going to ask us now, what we have to do to become distinguished. And of course, they worry if the club is not distinguished, they may become an outcast. But I suppose we'll discuss that further on. But to summarize, I would say, yes, we need a program that will measure achievements, but let us have this program heavily weighted on service. Thank you.
Thank you, DLG Bev. You heard the bell go off. Good time. DLG Mary Ellen Trimble, are you on the call? Mary Ellen, are you muted? Seems like she's not here. All right. So in the meantime, I'm going to go to the next question. And in the meantime, I'll try to reach Mary Ellen by text or telephone.
You can talk. They can talk.
It's just your
Please mute your microphones. Thank you. Question number 2. Leighton, if I may, what, if anything, would you change in the current program?
Yeah, sorry, something has gone wrong with my camera. I think the issue with the program, unfortunately, a lot of it has to do with integrity, accountability, and accountability. So I hear, you know, we focus on service work on a number of things, but unfortunately, a lot of stuff can be manipulated, and that is where the challenge is. So I think we should look at ways of ensuring that we hold people accountable in pursuit of whatever distinguished program. I know a lot of people have an issue with growth and all of that. It's gonna be tricky because if you look at Kiwanis International, we are by far the smallest of the top 3. Rotary is 1.4 million worldwide, so is Lions, we are under 300. So I'm see growth is gonna be a continuum, a requirement, but it shouldn't be growth at all costs. So I think we really have to look at how we can hold people more accountable to the growth criteria. You build a club today and you lose them tomorrow. What are the penalties, etc.? So, you know, I think most people, that's where they have an issue. Because even with service, they can manipulate it. I know clubs do good service and people do less service and still get up a recognition because of how they report. So I think we need to have a better program of accountability and integrity in the process.
Thank you, Leighton. Ralston, what, if anything, would you change in the program?
Phil, for the Kiwanians, you know, Kiwanis, in my mind, would still be a strong organization because I hardly think there's a Kiwanian who knew about the distinguished status prior to joining. I think they were propelled by the opportunity to serve and to give meaningful service. But there is certainly a number of issues that I see in the program as it is structured. And as my friend said, it is something that can be easily manipulated. I think that I would want to, however, move it away from being skewed towards the business end and to demand much more service out of clubs. I think that we need to look at how many SAP members are transitioned by clubs into the movement. You know, these are more, I think, far-reaching objectives than even, and I venture to say, paid dues, not on time, because you have to pay dues. So there are some things that I would change, Phil. I would want to look at how we And a lot of it, as Leighton said, is based upon integrity in reporting. And therefore, a lot of things we have to take what is presented to us. But there are certain things that I think the LGs could play a greater role because they are on the local scene, they are more knowledgeable of what is happening. And I think they should have a greater input in the decision as to clubs that are deemed distinguished at the end of a year. That's it for now.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you, PDT Ralston. Nicole, LG Nicole, est-ce que vous avez changé dans le programme de distingué?
What will I change? I'll change what just the program 242. I think it's a bit demanding and it could be performed per quarter to be distinguished as excellence per quarter, not during 12 months, because it's very difficult for LGs to manage it with president and for the president themselves. As far as my division is concerned, they are trying to do their best, but I must recognize that they do not manage all the clubs do not manage to have regular 242 meetings, but they are trying to do their best. So I consider that it could be per quarter in the program of to be distinguished excellent. And what else to change? I think, yes, there could be a favorite prize for French-speaking clubs, because the situation and the realities are different. The problems are not the same. So, especially for the Projet Signature contest, there could be a sort of special prize for small clubs with different realities.
Thank you, Nicole. I agree. And I know there's, I'm not sure if Emily Salfrank is on the call. She was going to try to be on the call. Emily, are you here today listening? Emily is our membership coordinator for Area 1 North America.
I am here. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Em. So I think what Nicole is trying to basically say is that we have a problem in remote areas and small towns where a 2-for-2 program in a small club is very difficult to execute every month, to the point where the members are required to bring in 2 new prospects at the next club meeting. So that's a challenge as far as demographics are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let's move on now, please. LG Hugh Reid, what, if anything, would you change in the program, LG Hugh?
Okay, as Kiwanians, there are 2 things we would like to do for the movement. One is to grow Kiwanis membership, and the second is to increase the amount of service that we're providing to our communities. I would postulate that the way to do that is to have strong clubs. How do we get strong clubs? Well, I would say that strong clubs have engaged membership. If you look at the distinguished club criteria, there's very little in it that seeks to reward clubs which have engaged members who come to meeting, members who participate in projects. And therefore, I think the distinguished club criteria needs to focus more on membership engagement. That is important because we cannot provide service if we have clubs that are weak and members who are not engaged. In that regard, I would also say that we have to be careful about forming new clubs with just charter strength, because that is a recipe for weak clubs. charter strength is for existing clubs and to ensure that they do not fall below 15. But to form a new club with just 15 is a recipe for weak clubs, and weak clubs will not allow us to grow membership and provide more service.
Excellent, Hugh. Thank you. I agree 100% that 15 is not the ideal number we require to open a new club. We definitely need 20 to 25 or more if possible, because you're going to inevitably lose 2 or 3 in the first year who decide to change their mind and decide they don't want to serve in that club for one reason or another. DLG Bev Thompson, what, if anything, would you change in the program?
Okay, thank you again. So we continue to speak about the weighting of the service, and I'm heavily on that. I want to would love to see where the service is, at the top. And then we also need to look at the minimum. I think one of my colleagues spoke about that, the minimum of our service leadership programs, because right now the current distinguished criteria speaks to opening a minimum of 1 new service project for children. And I think for that, we really need to increase that number. Even though it says minimum, we need to look at that there. And again, I just would like to see that it's skewed to service.
Thanks, Bev. Mary Ellen Tremble, are you on the call now? Were you able to get on? I did speak to her. She's having trouble connecting to her internet.
No, I'm here now, Phil. I was muted, that's all. Thank you very much.
Great. You're welcome. So Mary Ellen, what, if anything, would you change in the program?
Well, one thing that I would change in the program is to set the targets or the goals for 5 years and not have them change every year. I think that having goals that are changed every year by one individual is a bit of an issue for the majority of us. If we had one set of goals that was put in place by, say, the board of the district, and that they didn't change or would change only on review by that board, and then it would be an opportunity for more people to participate and understand what goes on as far as the goals are concerned. I definitely would have a goal. I definitely would not have a goal that included new clubs. I think new clubs causes issues. Getting distinguished for opening a new club definitely causes some issues. And one of the things that I would change would include the ability to honor individual members. The current distinguished program identifies how to honor clubs, lieutenant governors, presidents, secretaries, but not individual members. And they're the heart and soul of our clubs, the members who put all the time in. So that's the changes that I would make. Thank you, Phil.
Excellent, Mary Ellen. Good suggestions.
Phil?
Raleigh? Go ahead.
I just wanted to agree with Mary Ellen that the practice by which each international president sets their own criteria, which causes these criteria to change annually, is really a bugbear. It's riddled with inconsistencies, and we have some very negative spin-off from something like that. I also support the suggestion that maybe we should form a committee that looks at the criteria, and it is set for a specific period of time that is to be determined. But the country and it's shifting year after year after year. To me, it is a very, very challenging position. And as was said earlier, at the start of the year, clubs are anxious to find out what constitute the distinguished criteria.
Good suggestions. Thank you, both Raleigh and Mary Ellen Tremble. Question number 3. What is the fairness and what is the inequity in the current distinguished program? So now we're getting into the meat of the matter. And I'm going to go back to District Trustee Leighton McKnight. Leighton, what is the fairness and what is the inequity, if any, that you see in the current distinguished program?
Thank you, PG Phil. First, I'll say the fairness is that most times they are what you call SMART goals. So they are specific, they tell you what they are specific, they are measurable most times, you can measure them, attainable most times, realistic and time sensitive. So to me, most times they are that. The inequities come from a number of sources in my mind. One of the main area for distinguished status, as was mentioned, was a new club or membership growth. But you can have one president that comes this year and had 10 new members and is distinguished. Those 10 new members disappeared the next year. And in all fairness, unfair to the next president because he or she won't be distinguished through no fault of hers.
I'm going to talk to you guys. I'll go here because
so but you have to mute. Yeah. So, brother, PG Phil, I think that's one of the fundamental inequities which cause frictions in club. The changing issue also is another one because I remember one year, governor decided no distinguished lieutenant governor of excellence, but the one before had it. And then you have this issue of disparity, right? So we're not being consistent, right? I'd already mentioned about, the lack of integrity or accountability. So some clubs are very clear that they have done good work and see other clubs doing less work, even service, and they are more recognized. So those are some of the issues that I think we have to address, being fair to people. Forming a club and get distinguished, and by 2 years' time, the club disappears and there's no consequence. So those are some of the inequities I would put on the table for now, PG Phil.
With your permission, I know I'm the moderator, but I would like to highlight that last comment by Leighton McKnight. I think that's really important. Too often in the past number of years that I've observed, we've had changes from year to year by the incoming governor or the incoming international president. So the lack of consistency in our programs has affected the effectiveness and the real results of an effective distinguished program. When we think, if you really think about this, every time we change the rules, we change our sail in the middle of the ocean and we're going in a different direction. And every time we go in a different direction, there are different results, which can give us some good results, but also can not give us good results. We need to think about this very carefully. Thank you, Leighton. Ralston, did you wish to add anything to this? What is the fairness and what is the inequity in the current distinguished program?
Phil, the criteria which asks for formation of 10 clubs each succeeding year, it increases when the focus should really be on strengthening existing clubs. Because when we use the distinguishing criteria as a club opening tool, it results in many clubs being formed for the wrong reasons. And in several cases, as Leighton said, they do not survive 2 years. In many cases, there is no needs analysis done to determine if a club is truly warranted in a community. And so clubs are formed to satisfy a particular governor's goal, which is normally in support of an international president's aim. And, to put a little spin to distinguished club, it is not unheard of that a club that has not completed 1 year of existence is determined to be distinguished. How can that be? A club that has not had the opportunity to establish their service protocol properly, that might have done 1 or 2 projects. This, in my mind, the values the status and send the message that it is more about meeting financial obligations. And I could go on, but I'll give someone else a chance to speak.
With your permission, I'm going to go back to DLGE Sharon Williams. DLGE
Yes,
Sharon, I
PG
see
Phil.
there's 2 raised hands, and I believe
There-
you have questions in
There
the
are raised
chat.
hands.
would you please?
Okay. All right, so we have the raise hands.
Do you have a name?
I have Mary Ellen Trimble, Division 9. We also have, I
Ramdale.
think I saw another one. I'm not seeing the hand raised anymore.
Yeah, Ramdale from Kingston.
Somehow it's
Or-
not showing on mine here, but I don't know if Mary wants to go. You want us to take Mary now?
Sure.
PG?
Yes.
And then I look
Yes.
for the others because
Yes.
there were
Okay.
3.
Thanks very much, Phil.
Oh,
I
yes,
just wanted
right
to
here. I'm
mention,
seeing.
I just wanted to mention that in Canada, there is no doubt that we are underclubbed. We do not have anywhere near the saturation of clubs or membership that the Caribbean countries do. I want to give you one example. I went to Newmarket a couple of weeks ago to try to open a club there. And I went to a home show and there was 100 people stopped at our table. Of those 100 people, only 2 people knew what Kiwanis was. And by the way, those 2 people were from Jamaica. They knew what Kiwanis was. They were in a key club in Kiwanis or in Jamaica. So the difference between Caribbean and to the point that someone made earlier about we should be focusing on strengthening our clubs. I agree completely that is potentially, and I take the recommendation from you because you're from the Caribbean and that's your area that you understand. But in Canada, our issue is all these new areas that have got 100,000 people that used to have 10,000 people in it need to be focused on, and we need to get new clubs in those areas, definitely.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Does someone else have a raised
All right,
hand they'd like to
I'm
speak?
also seeing DP Nordio.
Ah, Nordia. Okay.
Nordio?
Good afternoon. Here.
Would everybody else please mute your microphones? Thank you. Go ahead, Nordia.
Oh, are you hearing me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm in agreement with the strengthening of clubs. If we have said 50 new members, it is better to share that 50 new members among 3 weak clubs instead of use those 15 or 20 members to start another club. Sometimes we start club and then, as all the panelists have said before, they just go down after might be 2 years. So instead of putting that criteria in to form a new club, we need to, if we leave it to slash and said form a new club or strengthening a weak club, but don't just put it as forming a new club because that allows members to form weak clubs. And we have been doing it and we have seen it and it just don't look good. And it don't look good for you to form it under one LG and then another LG come and then that club go down and then that LG might pass up on a DLG because that new club fell down under his or her here. So I think that needs to be revisited. Thank you.
Thank you, Nordia. Sharon, anything else? DLGE, Sharon, anything else?
I'm seeing Tina Turner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Tina Turner. Sorry. Tina Turner. She's saying she doesn't have the raise hand feature, but she seems to want to ask a question.
Are you the real Tina Turner?
Almost.
Almost. Go ahead, Tina.
Is Tina hearing?
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Not hearing me?
Go ahead. Yes, we hear you, Tina.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me.
Go ahead. You got 1
my
minute.
concern as it my concern as it relates to the fairness and inequity is it's my concern as it relates to the signature project. I've noticed from the strategic goals that a lot of the emphasis is based on the competition and not necessarily that the club actually have the signature project going and that it is ongoing and it is creating the impact that we expect it's supposed to have. And I'm thinking if a club, say for instance, has their signature project, it's going on for an extended period, as you would have highlighted that you want it to be recurring. It is something that you want to have there and the impact is being met. If this club or clubs do not get to enter in the competition, I don't think they should be penalized for it in that way, but they should also be recognized that the fact that they have a full-fledged program going and the impact is actually being created. So as it relates to that 100 points if you enter the competition, and I think that point should be going to the fact that the club has the project and the project is ongoing and the impact is being created.
Excellent. Thank you, Tina. Anything else, Sharon?
Yes, I'm seeing DLG Keith.
Go ahead, DLG Keith. You're muted.
Thank you, DLG Sharon and PG Phil. I would just like to touch on some points. I do understand in the goals of perhaps the president and the governor regarding some aspects of the distinguished program as we currently know it. It may be necessary for certain communities or regions, as I heard, I think it's LG Marianne mentioned that Canada perhaps need new clubs. I'm looking at it to the extent that Division 23 East and Division 23 Central, and perhaps even Division 23 West, are filled with so much club in tight-knit spaces that one could argue that any of the club that exists in the Kingston and St. Andrew area could easily reach many of these communities, and therefore there will be no seeming need to form new clubs in that area unless we speak of going rural St. Andrew. The point being made is that the issue of forming new clubs could perhaps come under, because it's required, and you would probably want to recognize clubs for their efforts in forming a new club, especially where the need is so required. Like how you have the Pinnacle segment of it. It could be moved out of the main and placed in other areas where once each club would have met the basic distinguished criteria, which emphasis would be on, say, service, then that forming a new club or entering, for instance, a signature competition, as President just spoke about, could be placed in the area where it's either a distinguished club of excellence or a distinguished club with other further recognition for them, but it can be removed out of the basic distinguished program and let us focus on service. The other thing, and it was mentioned, but I'm reiterating that I believe this section should be at least weighted. They are currently weighted evenly at 25 points each. I believe it should be weighted according to the importance of the goal. I'm not discounting the need from growth. It has its value. Clubs that are mature need fresh blood. And so you can recognize, but perhaps it could be weighted. The growth aspect could also be tiered. So if you have a net growth of 1, you get X points. A net growth of 2, you get Y points. And so on and so on. But
thank you, Keith. Thank you, Keith. I'm out of time. Thank you. Rosemary, you have 1 minute. Rosemary Brown, ESA. Unmute your microphone, please. Rosemary Brown of
Hi everyone.
St.
Good
Andrews.
evening. Thank you very much.
1 minute, please.
I think in setting the criteria, I think we need to also look on the time. I think Kiwanians, we're all volunteers, and most of us have full-time jobs. We also have other interests, family, otherwise. So when a one-year program is set and the leadership of the club becomes so focused and pigeonholed in just achieving criteria, and many persons have said that service becomes sidelined and the impact that Kiwanis and the membership should enjoy is not usually there. The president becomes burnout. After a year, you perhaps may disappear and you lose persons. So I think the idea of lengthening maybe even the Kiwanis year, so to speak, and the carryover of projects to give the club more time to cement and concretize projects. You tend to do just immediate projects that just to get a street feeding going. How impactful is that? There is less collaboration and more competition, and that's where I think we need to also focus. More collaboration among clubs.
All right, thank you. I'm going to move on now with the panel. Thank you, everybody. Keep your hands up and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. LG Nicole Plantier, what is the fairness and what is the inequity in the current distinguished program?
Oh, what is the fairness? Yes. I would say that, wait a minute, I'm looking for my answer. Despite the fact all the clubs are not on the same level, but any club can be distinguished, and I find it very fair. The status of excellence is a good idea too. And the thing that I think a bit difficult for some clubs, it's the fact that you have to pay dues as soon as November. Luckily for us, in the distinguished program, it's taken into account up to December, but sometimes we definitely have problems with paying dues on time. So I don't know if something could be done. I don't know, I don't have the solution, but I think that it is definitely a problem for some small clubs.
Yes.
Because some members do not pay their dues on time.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. I know Ralston and I have talked a lot about this, about the inequity in the system and the fact that we have this 90-day deadline from the beginning of the fiscal year, October 1 to December 31st to pay the dues. And many clubs are lose out in the distinguished program because they cannot meet that deadline. All right, LG Hugh, what is the fairness and what is the inequity in the program? LG Hugh.
Okay, in terms of fairness, I think that one aspect of the fairness is that in terms of the distinguished club criteria, it applies to all clubs. So whether you are in Timbuktu or you're in Kingston, Jamaica, once you are a distinguished club, you know that you have met the same criteria. There is an argument, however, that the way that you have a tiered structure for dues and signature projects and so on, that they may, there is an argument that there should be a tiered system in terms of distinguished club criteria. But I think it's important that even if it's tiered, it's the same standard that applies within the tier. Now, in terms of the inequity, I think the inequity is that there is insufficient focus on service hours. Kiwanis exist to provide service, and therefore we cannot have a distinguished club awards that does not focus on the service hours per member that clubs are giving. And I say per member because it will be the total, because big clubs have more members than small clubs. But to the extent that you have a small club and all the other members are working and providing service hours, they need to be recognized, or there should be some amount of recognition in the program. And the inequity as well lies in the fact that we don't seem to reward clubs that are focused on engaging the members. And as I said before, if we don't have engaged members, the Kiwanis clubs are going to be weak and ineffective.
Thanks, Hugh. DLG Bev, what's the fairness and what's the inequity in the program?
So, you know, the unfairness of being way down on the list, most of my colleagues would have said what I had in mind. But I just also want to say that the fairness that the goals are very specific, and someone said it before. And of course, it's also competitive. So when you get your criteria, you're looking at these goals and they're so specific that you can plan for it. And so that's good. But the inequity, what I see is that it doesn't allow for strengthening of clubs. I think someone mentioned it too, and we need to look at that. Once a club is strengthening their with getting their members, you know, to retain these members, there should be some form of recognition for that club.
Thank you, Bev, and I'm hearing you. I'm going to reverse the order on the next question.
Yes.
Last in the call is Mary Ellen Trimble. Mary Ellen, what's the fairness?
Thank you.
What's the inequity in the program?
Well, I agree with the last speaker. I think that we're sort of left at the bottom here, and a lot of very good ideas from the rest of our colleagues. I completely agree with Hugh. There is not enough recognition of clubs who are very much involved with service. I think that's an absolutely wonderful idea, that we figure out a way of building into recognition programs for service. I also would reverse SLP assigning numbers rather than new clubs. I would put SLP club openings equal to a new club. So that's, to me, our future. But other than that, I agree with everything else that everybody said. Thank you, Phil.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, Mary Ellen, you have the next question. How can we make the program better for all divisions and clubs?
Well, I think that the distinguished club is not something as important in Canada as it is in the Caribbean. I've spoken to quite a number of people in preparation for this meeting this evening, and without exception of the Canadian folks that I spoke to, there is little recognition that distinguished means an awful lot to either the Lieutenant Governor or to the club. So I do, however, think that we should continue with some sort of recognition process, whether we call it distinguished or something else. How can we make it better? Well, I think we should be, as was suggested earlier by Hugh, recognizing service hours, recognizing SLP club support, and definitely honoring the rest of our members, not just the officers of a club, but have the ability to honor individual members. In addition to that, I'll add one more comment. I think, and I asked somebody within Toronto the other day what they thought about honoring people at the club division level, and they said that's a great idea. It means a great deal to be recognized by people within your division.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. That's great. DLG Bev.
Hi, you know, I was just jotting here that I personally would like to see where the youth protection guideline policies form a part of the distinguished criteria, because in that way, we will get more clubs buying into. I'm looking, I don't see anything at all on this criteria, the current one, referring to the youth protection. Also, we really want to have a program, a criteria that speaks to the clubs that have the best service projects with different categories. And so we may want to go back to former years in Kiwanis where we had that particular program where clubs were recognized in different categories for their, whether a single service or a multiple service project. So I think we may want to refer, but most importantly, there has to be something in the criteria referring to the youth protection policy.
Thank you. LG Hugh, how can we make the program better for divisions and clubs?
Okay, it was at convention last year that I learned something very important. The acid test for Kiwanis Club is whether or not, if that Kiwanis Club ceased to exist, that the community which it serves would miss it. And therefore, I think that it is critical for the distinguished program that we emphasize the tie, the linkage between community, which doesn't necessarily have to be geographical, it can be virtual, but the tie between the community and the club. And a big problem in Jamaica is that with the proliferation of clubs, there's no longer that clear tie between the club and the community. And that weakens the Kiwanis movement because we exist to service the community. And in that regard, therefore, it is very important that when new clubs are formed, there is a clear need for that club, not for points. There's a clear need for that club in the community. And I would suggest that if you are forming a club and you can't find 30 members, then clearly
I'm losing you.
I've lost him.
Okay. All right. Thanks, you. I'm going to move on. LG Nicole, how can we make the program better?
No, hello, Chair.
Yes.
Why would you move on? I think that's a critical point you was making. Yeah. Can somebody continue on that point who is familiar with the point he was making instead of, or maybe I don't know the objective. What when you move on, will you come back to this point? What's the arrangement in the agenda? Because
who is speaking? Who is speaking, please?
Sorry, IPLG Noel.
Okay. Thank you, Noel.
Years.
Yeah. All right. Let me stay with the program, please. Thank you. All right. Ralston, how can we make the program better?
Just checking my microphone. Hear it?
Yep.
Yep. You know, Phil, there's not much wrong with the program. It's how we approach it and how we misfocus. Because and we have to be clear the message we send down as leaders from the top. Because my experience is that even when you can point out that a club is a phantom club, my words, it's not meeting, it has no board, and you bring it to a governor's attention, there is a hesitancy to remove them from the register. I remember being distinctly told that you don't understand. It's about making my district distinguished. And so they strive to attain distinguished status. It's not just at the club level, it is happening throughout the organization. And for us to make it better, I think we have to be careful the message that we send. So for the ordinary, well, not ordinary, for the great Kiwanians in the different clubs across the district. I think it's not an impossible task and we should not be daunted. We should continue to press on. I honestly like the idea of the distinguished program. We attempted it at the district level before because I think the district is a little closer to the clubs. And now I'm hearing a suggestion that maybe division should be given out awards. I said earlier, I think that the lieutenant governor should be play an integral part in determining the distinguished status of clubs, because lieutenant governors are on the ground. They know what is happening. They see exactly what the clubs are doing on the ground.
Thanks, Leighton. Thank you, Ralston. Leighton, how can we make the program better?
Yeah, you're calling me Ralston, Phil. I was telling you I'm the
Yeah.
cute one. No, I'm the
My
cute
apologies.
one, not him. I was telling you I'm the cute one, not him.
You're better looking.
I feel offended
So PLG thing, quickly, I would say a number of things. First, more consultation, and let us not be discouraged, because this is an excellent what we are doing today. What we are having here is a consultation. Yet the first time seeing this on this basis where we consult with each other. So a lot has been said what we can think about making the program better. So the consultation is one. Two, more local involvement. Ralston just touched that again, because the integrity of the process and all of that, the people on the ground know what's happening and cannot be fooled by what has been reported. I was up when LG Mary mentioned the issue of the difference between, say, Canada and Jamaica. It's important. Local situation matters. And the fact that in Canada, it may be not as important to be distinguished as in Jamaica. For 2022, there were 9 distinguished divisions, 4 were Jamaica. So 1/3 of the divisions were, and 4 is Jamaica. But to the contrary, on the other hand, that was good. But I got a list from the SGMC with 14 charter suspended clubs. And guess what? 11 are out of Jamaica. And more than half have been formed in less than 10 years. So that tells a story, and we need to act on, right?
That's why we're having this forum.
Yep. So, yeah, and that's why I bigged it up from the start. So those are, we mentioned the issue of being more consistent. That has been said. Let us look to long-term strategic goal. We are operating too much on a year-by-year basis, and that has its pitfall. Membership recruitment requirements, we may have to look at that, and more education and communication, because there's a lot of ignorance and a lot of information not being properly disseminated. So, I mean, I'll just add those, because as I said, this is what it's about. We have been saying a lot of what we can do to make it better.
Okay, thank you, Leighton. Thanks, everybody. I see raised hands. I'm going to get to you, I promise. But first of all, we're going to have a musical interlude. I think you're going to enjoy this. Vice Governor Pam, back to you for your musical interlude.
Thank you, PG. Phil, I'm sitting here and I'm enjoying every moment of this forum. What a great idea you had, and for me to have taken up this challenge. But before we continue, we had 2 persons who were joining us, and the LGE Sharon was kind enough to put the acknowledgement in the chat for me. We have KIT Hope Marks from right here in Jamaica. I'm claiming her. And we also have past Governor Janet Atkinson. Thank you so much for joining. Fellow Kiwanians, recently we had the Builders Club rally, and we are all about the children. That's why we are here, SLP program. And so this evening, rather than bringing you a fantastic artist from Canada or from the Caribbean doing Calypso, we're going to bring you some wonderful, just simple, wonderful performances from our Builders Club members. DP Stefan, could you please put them on the screen for us? I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. The entertainment is recorded just to make sure that we had them with us.
My name is Javier Harper, and I'm from the Larry Severn Primary School, the #1 school of excellence. Builders Club, build leaders. Builders Club, build leaders. Builders Club is an organization where we provide service throughout the nation, led by students who offer services from every nook, cranny, and crevice. Builders Club, build leaders. Builders Club, build leaders. We build, prepare,
Thank you so much. That was the first one. Builders Club Bill Leaders. Builders Club Bill Leaders. Come on, make a difference. And he's a great soloist too. He sings very well, and he's from the Lawrence Tavern Primary School. Can we have the next one? VP Stefan.
Let's Make a Difference by F.A. Atkinson. Let's make a difference because we can. Let's make a difference because we can. Work hard to be better.
Stefan, can it be a little louder? Is it possible?
Women and men. Excellent to say, so we are doing best. Excellent to say, so we are doing best. With God as our guide, not every can test. With God as our guide, not every can test. Walking or running in this race called life. Walking or running in this race called life. Keep your head high, trust Jesus Christ. Keep your head high, trust Jesus Christ. We're not gonna fuss or we're not gonna fight. We're not gonna fuss or we're not gonna fight. Cause in a judge's sight, that just do right. In a judge's sight, that just do right. Lawrence Tavern Builders Club, the #1 club of excellence. In our club, where does this go? In our club, where does this go? Builders, we have something to show. Builders, we have something to show. God give enough gift, let the whole world know. God give enough gift, let the whole world know. Builders have leaders. Builders, we have leaders. We is a set of true seekers. We is a set of true seekers. So let's make a difference, every boy, every girl. So let's make a difference, every boy, every girl. Let's make a difference right around the world. Let's make a difference right around the world. Let's make a difference, every boy, every girl. Let's make a difference, every boy, every girl. Let's make a difference right around the world. Let's make a difference right around the world. Let's make a difference right around the world.
Okay, I'm sorry that one wasn't very clear with the audio, but they were saying, let's make a difference. Builders Club. Builders Club. Let's make a difference. Clover, can you please mute your mic? Clover, please mute your mic. DP Stefan, was there a third one or just the two? You can answer out loud.
I think it was just the two, VG Pam.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much. And PG Phil, we're going to move on. Sorry, those that especially the last one wasn't very good on the audio, but I will be able to send that one to you, PG Phil, so you can hear them a little better. And so we're going to move into the second part of our forum this afternoon, where we take questions from our attendees and responses from the panel members. Back to you.
Thanks, Vice Governor. Thanks, Vice Governor. That was wonderful. Those 5 young ladies, I hope to see them in the final 4 by 400 meters at the Olympics in about 10 years. So before we move on, please mute your microphones. Before we move on, I have a very special guest I want to introduce to all of us. She is my leader. She is my international president, Jane Erickson, all the way from Nebraska. Jane, tell us what you know about the Distinguished Program. What are your thoughts?
Oh, my goodness. First of all, thank you for the invitation to actually listen to all of you. And I have to say that listening to those last Builders Club singing, if we could match their energy and their, we truly wouldn't have any kind of membership issue. I mean, just look in their faces, those beautiful smiles. That positivity is what we need. That's why we do what we do, isn't it? That's exactly why we do what we do, because they're amazing. When it comes to distinguish, and you're trying to figure out how to do it with Canada and Caribbean, imagine from an international perspective trying to do that with everyone worldwide. So the challenge becomes even more so when you do that. I just want to thank you, because 315 people on a call to discuss how to make Kiwanis better, whether it's recruiting, whether it's retention, whether it's opening sustainable clubs, no matter what it is, whether we're talking amazing service to kids. This is where the passion comes together, the commitment comes together, and by working together, we become and continue to be that powerful force for good in the world. So I'm going to mute myself. I will go back and listen. Good luck with what you're doing. And thank you on behalf of all the kids that you're helping and will help. Thanks. My chairman, Phil, he's the chairman of our class. So I know him as Chairman Phil. Thank you.
Thanks, President Jane. Much appreciated. I'd like to introduce Kiwanis International Trustee Hope Marks. Hope, would you please bring us some greetings from the Kiwanis International Board of Trustees? And what are your thoughts on the distinguished program in Eastern Canada and the Caribbean?
I am, I'm on, good.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know, I really liked what Leighton said, and I liked what Mary Ellen said. Personally, I like surprise recognitions, personally. I mean, that's just my own opinion. But I think we do need incentives. I think the root of the issue, based on, I thought, you know, I thought that how this meeting came about is that we have not failed if we don't get an award. We are giving selflessly to our communities, and so few people in this world are doing that. I just think we're winners just by doing that. So I think the idea of failing if you don't get an award is something we need to look at. Could be the root of the issue, because, you know, I've been approached many times. Why didn't I get this? Why didn't I get that? And I'm thinking so highly of that person who asked me, but that person is thinking highly because they didn't get an award. On another note, this meeting that you're having this evening I think is a great idea. And maybe we need more of these to hear, you know, people's voices. We are of a different culture, pretty diverse. And we heard Mary Ellen, we heard our own culture. And you heard what Mary Ellen said, basically. And some of you agreed, maybe some of you didn't, I don't know. But I think we all have a story to tell. But I think the bottom line is, guys, I'd like to encourage you to think that you're not losers because you didn't get an award. The other thing is, I noticed what DP Nordia said. And I've always thought that, you know, the stronger clubs should really help the weaker clubs. Is something I believe in. And I think share the love. Share it. You're doing well, I want to share it. I want you to do well, because I think that's what leadership is all about. And thank you for inviting me. And Janet is here with me. We are in Ottawa. And it's good to be here. The temperature, of course, is not the same, but it's nice to know that I'm in a different culture and I'm learning more and more. So thank you. Thank you for.
Thanks, Hope. Thank you very much. There's someone on this call who've been waiting a long, long time. So please accept my sincere apologies. District Administrator Odence Rose of Portmore. Odence, the floor is yours. Please unmute your mic.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, PG Phil.
I have listened and I will say that I am in agreement with most of what was said. I found though the comment that LG Mary Ellen made, and just now this almost similar comment that DT Hope did, which bordered on something that Nordia said. No, for SLPs, this year we were asked by our international president to build SLP clubs, specifically K-Kids. But guess what has happened? The distinguished criteria is not going to recognize established clubs that have already had a number of SLP programs that they are sponsoring. Only new clubs without SLP clubs will gain points under the distinguished program. And what it has done is most of the established clubs are saying, hey, we are not going to be recognized. So we'll allow the new clubs to do the formation and the organization. However, the new clubs do not have possibly the manpower needed, and they may not have the funds needed to carry these new clubs, to pay for them. And so you have clubs meeting in schools, and there are no Kiwanis clubs waiting to sponsor them. I have been going to one, and we have been having an issue finding a Kiwanis club to sponsor it. I am not sure how best we are going to address issues like these if we continue with the distinguished program as it relates to SLPs, because we need a foundation from the SLP clubs to grow our clubs. That was my 2 cents.
Thank you, Odence. If I could add to that, since the pandemic, we have lost, I don't know how many SLP clubs. Up here in Canada, it's like we've been in a deep sleep. I call it a COVID headache. It's a nightmare. And our SLP clubs are really suffering in Eastern Canada. We've got to revive them. We've got to get them back up and running. And the only way to do that is through our adult clubs who need to come out of their deep sleep and get busy with our SLPs, supporting them financially, as well as encouraging them to get back to meeting once again. We're doing it slowly but surely, but it's a hard road ahead, and we've got to walk that road.
Really a hard road, PG, Phil. And it would be good if some of our established clubs come out, even though they won't be recognized, and collaborate with the new clubs, so that we can get more SLP clubs formed or revised.
Thank you, Odence. Yes, Raleigh.
Yeah. What I've been hearing, and I've come to the point where I think we should maintain the program, but it should be maintained with some rethinking and re-engineering at the criteria setting level. But it should also involve what amounts to almost a culture change in how clubs view and approach its attainment. When clubs should be in communities seeking to address needs, instead of focusing on ticking off the little boxes to indicate that you have satisfied some criteria. I think that as volunteers, we need the incentive, but we should not lose focus. And I think sometimes in order to gain that incentive, we tend to straighten corners a bit. And that is where the issue comes, when we are misled by criteria that sometimes is not even appropriate to your local situation.
Thanks, Raleigh. I'm going to save a lot of my comments for the end because I think it's pertinent, but I'll save them rather than answer you right now. DLGE Hewitt Johnson, you're up next. Hewitt. Hello, good friend.
Thank you very much, PG Bill. Good evening, good afternoon to all members on this platform. My contribution is leaning towards the number of clubs in any one division. And maybe I'll ask a question. Couldn't it be that there's a set number of clubs that we will not surpass, should not be surpassed in each division? Because there are divisions with 25, 24, I supervise 24 clubs in a division, and I know other clubs supervise 25, 26. The idea is the geography of, I speak specifically of Division 23 West. The geography is wide and varied. We go all the way to Mandeville, for those who know. I'm speaking of international persons, and we go all the way to Guys Hill. If there was a limit to the number of clubs that a division will really afford or should have, then I think we will spread wider. We will have persons, LGs or others being able to monitor the number of clubs they have better. And I think in the end, it will be best for all of us. What says you?
I agree. We need a weighting program. And President Dora in the chat just summed it up beautifully. Because some clubs in some divisions are disadvantaged because of the criteria. So we definitely have to look at the criteria. Again, I'm going
to give a quick remark on that. Quick.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Leighton.
So the last district board meeting, that was a very, very prominent topic. So it's on the agenda. It is recognized. Both long-term planning and some other committees are trying to address that issue. So the governor is on too. So it is being looked at DLGE. You are correct, and it's right on the radar. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, action is needed. So that's the message we're trying to give the board. We need your support. We need your guidance, and we need the governor to be on board with us. And I know he is.
Can I say one word, Phil?
Absolutely, Governor.
Indeed, as Leighton pointed out, we have discussed this specific item because we said there comes a moment that is impossible for an LG to have 25, 26 clubs under his wings or under her wings that they have to take care of. And you have other LGs that have maybe 5 or 6 clubs. It's imbalance. There is an imbalance. So I want just to confirm that we will be looking to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. We have Lieutenant Governor Carolyn McDonald Riley of Division 23 East. Carolyn, please unmute your microphone.
Thank you, Phil. Good evening, everyone. Well, I'd just like to reinforce some of what was said, since it has been said, a point that I wanted to raise. But I think we really have to look at tired criteria, because if it is that the Canadian clubs have a lot of room for growth, we don't want to stop growth. We want new people joining the movement. And at the same time, in other divisions, some of us in the Caribbean, Jamaica specifically, we might almost be saturated as it seems, although I can tell you we are not, because there are still hundreds of persons who can join the movement. Perhaps making a new club might not be the answer. However, there might be members who are not willing or would be ready. Myself, I wouldn't want to be joining a fledgling club, a club that looks like it's on its way down. I don't know that I'd want to be a part of that. I might want to be a part of something new. That said, though, some weighting criteria needs to be given to a division that looks at strengthening a club, bringing a club back from almost the dead, or bringing up clubs that were almost non-existent. I think I don't have the answer. It's no one size that fits all, because we all have different goals, especially in different countries. But certainly we need to look at a weighting criteria in terms of how we reward persons that perform. Thank you.
Thank you, LG. And now we're going to hear from DLG Grace of Kiwanis Club of Negril Point. Grace, I have not seen you in years. How are you?
Too long. I am good. And thank you. And again, I'm at the bottom now. So most of the notes I made were already said, and I'm agreeing with just about everything said, but I just want to reiterate and emphasize my division 25 is one of those who have like 24 clubs. And I think the criteria for distinction should be varied. So different situations would apply to different clubs. I now speak of my club, for example. We have 40 odd members. And I know many clubs have this issue too, with only maybe 1/3 of the members who are participating and are involved. So there again, you need, somebody mentioned earlier about recognizing members who participate, right? I just want to point out too, so that forming new club for us may not be what we need to do, but we continue to put in our service hours, which should be our criteria then for that. And I would also want to say training is never enough. Training needs to be continuous throughout the year, not just when officers are coming in the new year. Training and in regards to protocol and thing. And the last thing I want to mention, I think my time is limited. Somebody mentioned about LGs being on the ground with the clubs. And I feel, yes, that the LGs should be integral in making recommendations for the club to be distinguished, as was done in previous year. I know it was done in my year and maybe in Phil's year when we would make the recommendation to the governor. Now we have clubs recommending themselves, you know, which I know, I don't want to get in trouble here, but sometimes people exaggerate, you know, and they end up this serve little or no time, and they end up with distinguished criteria. So my question, Phil, in closing is, after this meeting, what will you be doing with all this information here that we spoke on today? Is it going to go somewhere that it can be worked on, tweeted on or something?
Well, I was going to come to that at
All
the
right.
end, but I'll
So
jump
I'll
in
wait.
right. No, I'm going to answer your question directly right now. DLG Grace, our intention is to make a list of recommendations to Vice Governor Pam, as well as Governor-elect John, to either create a distinguished criteria committee or take our recommendations for consideration and give us their very best plan of action to respond to this concern that has been addressed today. It's been coming up to this point for a long time now, and it's time now to take action, not to dismantle the distinguished program, but to make it fair and equitable for all divisions in EC&C.
PG, Phil, also the recommendation, I strongly recommend too, that the criteria is for more than 1 year. Maybe 5,
Yes.
not necessarily, but definitely for more than 1 year. You can't just keep changing like that. It doesn't do well.
All right.
Thank you very much for my time.
Thank you, Grace. Mary Ellen Trimble?
Thank you, Phil. I wanted to say earlier that one of the things that I think should occur is this whole question about new clubs and being distinguished because of opening a new club needs to have a real serious review. In Ontario, if you looked at just my own division, which is called the Greater Toronto Area, we have the potential of opening at least at minimum another 25 clubs here. What needs to happen, in my opinion, is that there needs to be a complete review of opportunities to open new clubs and a plan developed by the Long-Term Planning Committee. Not just looking at Ontario, ladies and gentlemen, looking at what was said earlier in Jamaica, but I can't imagine what it must be like to have 25 clubs reporting to a lieutenant governor. I mean, what a workload. So we need to look not only where we open new clubs, we also need to look at how divisions are established today. And I wanted to support Odins and say you had said you were right on with what you said about SLPs. There needs to be recognition not only of new SLPs, but clubs that support SLPs as an ongoing service project. Thanks very much for it, Phil.
Okay, Mary Ellen. Kermit McGann, the floor is yours, sir.
Thanks, PG Phil, and a pleasant good afternoon to everyone online. It's great to see so many persons joining us this afternoon. I find it very important and very interesting. I have 5 little things which I need to talk about very quickly. One is that the distinguished criteria which we speak about involves input from the district as well as from Kiwanis International. And PG Phil, as you prepare your recommendations, there has to be something in there where KI has to be brought on board. So we really need buying in from both. The second thing has to do with new clubs. Now, and the charter strength issue. Now, I've been in Kiwanis long enough to know when the charter strength, and charter strength meaning at that particular point in time, the number of new Kiwanians needed to form a new club was like 25. So I knew when it was being reduced to 15, and the intention at that time was to seek a big time. And to my mind, there's a need to separate the two things. One, charter strength, number needed to form a new club should be in the region of 25. The 15 should be, a club is the lower limit for a club to survive. In other words, if a club gets down to 15, or rather if it gets down to 14, maybe there should be some intervention, deliberate intervention procedure in place to do that. So, and this is clearly where KI needs to come in, because a lot of the things that KI has done, presumably to spur growth, has backfired big time. I have a note here which says no cash. Yes, I was there when a certain international president offered cash for the formation of new clubs. Well, I think we all know the result of that. SLP, I know the policy has begun to change, but then it needs to be probably emphasized and or strengthened. That is, deliberately, we should be seeking to include or to bring in SLP members, former SLP members into Kiwanis. The long-time policy was not necessarily to do that, but just simply to create, train leaders. But we should be not training people to send to Rotary or Lions or one of those. We should be training people to bring into Kiwanians, to make them Kiwanians. So that policy needs to be emphasized very strongly. I just want to mention these last two. The criteria for distinguished status or that kind of a reward program should have a 5-year, I do support the 5-year limit. The other thing is to kind of let's say we're using 4 pillars, should break it up. And if a club did not achieve all of the requirements to become totally distinguished, they should be recognized for those that they have received. That program was also started in the late 90s, early 2000s, one of those. But after about 3-4 years, it was cut out and just died. Again, that is something to encourage our clubs. And the final thing I want to mention is accountability. My friend Leighton has mentioned it very early in the discussion, and accountability is critical. A number of suggestions have been made towards that end, but I'm just simply reinforcing accountability, and it's going to be important that we push forward with it, and in whatever revision is going to take place, then accountability ought to be given a high consideration to ensure that it works. That's it for me, sir. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Kermit. We have 12 minutes left in this meeting, so I'm going to stick to that agenda. So please limit your comments to at least to a maximum of 3 minutes if you can. We're going to hear now from DG Bobby Moo Young. Please unmute your microphone, Bobby.
Phil, I yield to
I'm losing you. You're yielding to Mel Clark? Okay.
Yes, Phil, he was before me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I didn't know that. DG Mel, the floor is yours. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My contribution is that the criteria should be focused on KI and the district 2 or 3 year strategic plan. One of the items that I see lacking is that the Kiwanis International has a strategic plan for the Kiwanis Children's Fund. Our distinguished award tells the club you can either choose your local children's fund or the Children International, the Kiwanis Children's Fund option. So therefore, what it does is it gives the club an option of eliminating the initiatives for Kiwanis International global goals. So therefore, we need to address something like that so that there is no comparison between the two, because they should be mutually exclusive. The second item I had, we keep saying that the children is our future, but the distinguished criteria don't speak to it. We should be given the SLP program a higher weight in the scoring of the distinguished award. And my other 2 points, they were already covered, so I won't deal with those. Thank you.
Thank you, DG Mel. I'd like to address something before I go to Bobby Moo Young, please. And it's in the chat. It has to do with the Strategic Long Range Planning Committee of the district. For your information, the Vice Governor is the chair of the Strategic Long Range Planning Committee. That's why today's host is Vice Governor Pam Rodney White. She is chair of the Long Range Strategic Planning Committee. Next year, the incoming Vice Governor will be the chair of this committee. And I believe that candidate is on this call listening. So we hear you loud and clear. I don't believe that the Strategic Long Range Planning Committee has failed us. I think that this forum has brought this challenge and these issues to light, to the front of the table, and it will be addressed. I'm confident that we will find a better, more equitable program developed by the district, led by the Vice Governor, who's chair of the Strategic Long Range Planning Committee. DG Bobby, the floor is yours. 3 minutes, please. DG Bobby, are you there? Walter, are you there?
Yes, PG Phil, I'm here.
Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. I strongly agree that we should maintain the distinguished program. However, I think where the concentration needs to be is, as many of us have said, more to recognizing clubs for the service that they give, and for us to put more weight on our SLPs. I think the criteria is too mathematical in terms of net growth, and we need to understand that we can strengthen our clubs and we can grow, but net growth is strangling us as clubs, and we need to really recognize clubs at all levels. And I think it was KIT Hope who said, none of us are losers because we're all volunteers serving our communities. I would also recommend that the program needs to have the word distinguished be segregated, and clubs can be recognized for your achievement either at the top or the bottom, but service needs to be recognized more in terms of our members, what we do in our communities, the impact we make, and not necessarily how we net grow or net lose.
Thank you. Well said.
Yeah.
DG Bobby, are you hearing us? DG Bobby, are you there? All right. Does anybody else have anything to add before I finish up this presentation?
Yes, I'm PG Phil. I am PLG Llewellyn Allen.
Yes, Llewellyn. Hello.
Yeah, yes. Hi, Phil.
Welcome.
Yes, I am a Kiwanian with 38 years of service, and I've never served Kiwanis with a focus on being rewarded. And I know for sure that there are countless number of other Kiwanians who also fall in this category. Nonetheless, at the end of the day, when the distinguished status is awarded to the club, it is just the president and the secretary who walk away with distinguished titles. I frankly believe that the introduction of some individual awards by the district and maybe Kiwanis International would offer club members as individuals an opportunity to shine in vying for these awards, which of course, in my opinion, would aid in moving the clubs to new levels. My 2 cents contribution.
Well said, Llewellyn. Thank you very much.
Phil.
Food for thought. There you are, Bobby.
Yeah.
Speak up. Go ahead,
Thank
Bobby.
you, Phil. I just wanted to bring.
We're having trouble hearing you, Bobby. You're fading in and out.
A problem with my internet. So
okay.
Maybe DG Bobby could post it in the chat.
Yeah, I can't paraphrase what he's going to say because I can't read his words. All right. So I'm just going to put something on the screen for more for everyone, but also for our vice governor. So to finalize with the panel, what are your recommendations to Vice Governor Pam Rodney-White to make to the Distinguished Recognition Program? I'm going to start with LG Hugh Reid. What are your recommendations to VG Pam? Go ahead, Hugh.
My recommendations would be that we need to re-examine the distinguished club criteria and put a greater focus on service hours per member, as well as the clubs that are strengthening their membership and engaging their memberships. And we need to find ways, whether it be through surveys, whether it through be other metrics to reward these clubs. The other thing I would say as well is that bigger clubs, I believe, should be one of the strategies for us. And the reason for that is that bigger clubs can do more things for their communities, and therefore it's important that when we are looking at the formation of clubs, we ensure that the numbers are sufficient to enable that club to grow, and that with the inevitable defection of members, that the club doesn't wither away in 2 or 3 years. And finally, I think we also need to focus on millennials, because we are all, should I say, senior Kiwanians in the main. And I think the focus of millennials, which should be the focus for new club building, needs to be on the 3-2-1 club format, because millennials generally do not have the amount of time that maybe in the past we devoted to Kiwanis.
Thank you.
PG Phil?
Yes.
Hi, Sharon here. I have DG Bobby on my phone on speaker. Can he go ahead and ask?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, PG Phil. I wanted to bring a past governor's perspective on this topic. You know, Jane said, International President Jane said something. about how difficult it is to do a distinguished criteria from a KI level, international level. I want to let you know how difficult it is to administer a distinguished program with so many countries and so many different cultures from a governance standpoint. Let me just say this. When I was the governor designate and went to KI office, I had to negotiate some of the things that made me criteria for distinction. I also recognize that when I became the governor, you will recall, Phil, that International President Sue Peterson decided that she would not have a distinguished program. So at the district level, we decided to have a recognition program for our district because we felt that it was very important. And I believe that the distinguished program is a very important program. However, we have to take culture and countries' condition when we set them, and we must be held accountable for them. I share that perspective that Leighton said, District Trustee Leighton said, accountability, because as the governor, I'm responsible for all my LGs. There is a program that the DLGE program is. I think it was clear to me what the DLGE program is. And I'm saying, when we compromise the program, it sends a wrong message. When we compromise the president's program, it sends a wrong message. And so therefore, it is important that accountability, and in fact, the LG Grace said, you know, it would be so good because the LG is on the ground. The LG should be part of making a recommendation for presidents. I also want to address the topic of strengthening and opening new clubs. Now, listen, Jamaica has suffered, not because the clubs are not good. It suffered because the club members cannot pay the dues. That's the problem with Jamaica. The club members cannot pay the dues. I'm not saying that there are not clubs that are not performing, but the majority of clubs that fail are because of dues. And I think that we have to put the thing in perspective. We have to continue to open clubs. We have to continue to strengthen clubs at the same time. So that's my thing on it. And lastly, the finances. It's so important. When you make the budget at the district level, if you are not getting your dues on time, then the SLP program is going to suffer, believe you me, because the SLP gets a direct stipend from the dues that each club member makes. Thank you. I could say so much more, but I will try to do it at another time. Thank you so much.
Time up, Bobby.
Yeah, time's up. Time's up. Anyways, we're at 7:32. We've now been 2 hours. On behalf of Vice Governor Pam, I want to thank everybody. I'm going to pass the baton back to Pam, but before I do, I'm going to quickly, if you'll bear with me, a vote of thanks for a number of people who were involved in this presentation today. To Kenton Bryan for prayer, Governor Anthony for his greetings, to our panelists, Leighton McKnight, Ralston Nunes, Nicole Plancier, Hugh Reed, Bev Thompson, Mary Ellen Trimble, to the attendees, to DST Jim for sharing the promotional flyer, and all others who helped share it in the WhatsApp groups and on social media, to LGD Stefan Romper for hosting us on a Zoom, to District PLG Chair Sharon Williams for assisting with questions from the chat, to DP Tadmar Moore for designing the flyer, to DP Judith Montague for designing the save the date flyer, And I want to express on behalf of Vice Governor Pam, our condolences to DP Judith, who lost her mother yesterday morning. Finally, from my own perspective, I want to thank you all. This has been a stimulating conversation. We've all learned a lot from each other, and Vice Governor Pam will get a full report from me with help from anyone who wishes to give me their contribution. Vice Governor Pam, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, PG Phil. And I want to take the opportunity on behalf of all of us here to express our gratitude to you for moderating this wonderful forum. It has been an eye-opener for many of us this evening. Loads and loads of information, and I think it was really essential because you can tell that persons had ideas, they had their comments, they had their opinion, which they probably never had the opportunity of expressing publicly. And so leaders of our district are here. Members of our long-range planning committee are here, and I want to thank them so much for joining. And of course, we definitely will be looking at some of the recommendations and suggestions that have come out of this very important forum this afternoon. Thank you so much. My gratitude again to everyone who joined this evening, and I wish for you a wonderful rest of Sunday afternoon. Thank you so much.
And Vice Governor, we could not go without, on behalf of the panel, thanking you and PG Phil for having put on this session. We think it is very important. I think we want to scratch the subject because there's so much more to speak about. But I hope that we will get other opportunities on other topics. And thank you again. Thank you. Thank you.
And please make the forum a little longer, VG Pam. Maybe 6 hours or
I thought I was taking up all of your
no, I have a list here.
Maybe you could stop recording.
My conclusions.
Let me terminate the forum at this time, and we can continue with the discussions if Stefan has the time for us to chit chat a bit.
I must step another time, BG.
Good session. Bye, guys. Thanks, BG.
Yeah, bye. Thank you, man.
Thanks,
Thank you. Hungry dinner.
Thanks for inviting me, BG Pam.
Good session.
If Stefan shut us off, then you go.
Everyone.
So VG Pam.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Phil.
I got, while I was online, somebody sent me a little note on WhatsApp to ask about the signature project, that it be really made more emphasis is to be placed on the signature. I know it's on the criteria for this year, but definitely more weighting needs to be put on it too, because it's through the signature project that we do service. We get a lot of service hours. And so they've asked that. And so I also just wanted to say that I'm hoping that the weighting of the criteria of the distinguished program will now really place more emphasis on service. So instead of, we know growth is essential, but growth can be negative also. So just spin it around, service before anything else, and then everything else should fall in place. But a lot of good things came out of it. And so I wanted to ask Phil, this thing of LG's applying for their distinguished status, is that just a one-off for, it was last year, I think, and this year? Is that going to be changed? Is anyone looking into that, where they have to apply?
I don't know. I don't have that answer. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, because I think what happens.
I PLG know earlier, Vice Governor Pam.
Yeah, I'm listening.
The deliberation that take place here this evening, whatever comes out of the panel, which would be chaired by you, you have an idea what time frame the impact would be having will affect 23, 24? You think so? But whatever the final decision would be, will it affect the current situation as it relates to criteria for distinguished for 23, 24?
Not for this year.
23, 24 will be governed by our current governor-elect, John Shave, and that answer would have to come from G.E. John.
So you're saying whatever deliberation your committee will be going into would not be impacting 23, 24?
Well, like I said, it is his year, so he will have to decide.
May I intercede, Vice Governor?
Well, if you don't, Phil, I definitely am going to, because I believe that's what that called.
Well, I just want to clarify one thing, a couple of things here. As far as the distinguished criteria for divisions and clubs, the criteria is set each year by the incoming governor. That's why Pam said it's John Shave. So the recommendations that from this session today will go to Vice Governor Pam, who's chair of the SLP committee. The the Strategic Long Range Planning Committee. That committee will make its recommendations to the Board of Trustees. The board will then vote on those recommendations, and if passed, the recommendations will be put into the Policies and Procedures Manual of the district. So if there is a recommendation, for instance, to change the criteria, that would be voted on by the board and decided at the board level, of which the governor is a member and has a vote. So it's not necessarily the governor who will be responsible for that criteria. It's going to be up to the board and the recommendations of the Strategic Long Range Planning Committee.
And I might add, DG Phil, that G.E. John has already set his criteria for 23, 24.
That's right. That's why we're speaking
Thank
to
you, Phil,
today.
very much for that clarification.
Okay.
I was going to suggest to Pam that perhaps this would indeed get in place before she becomes governor. So thank you very much for the clarification about how the process will work. Pam, are you currently the chair of the Long Range Plan?
Yes, I am, Mary.
You are until the end of, when do you produce
September
your report?
30th. September 30th.
September.
When do you produce your report?
We do quarterly reports, and so we will have one for the next quarter.
And will it include the information from this meeting?
Yes, I hope so.
Thank you.
In fact, the Long Range Planning Committee looked at the problem or the challenges right now of having so many clubs in a particular or any one particular division. And so recommendation was put to the board, and this is why we heard earlier, as DT Layton mentioned, that the board will be looking at this. We will have a small committee that will take a look at it. And you did hear Governor Anthony also mention that.
Yeah, that is something that I'm sure is an issue within Jamaica. That is not a problem for the Greater Toronto area, as I mentioned earlier. What we need in the Greater Toronto area and other parts of cities within Eastern Canada is a look at where are there areas that should have clubs. And that led me to make a recommendation earlier that we do a look at areas in which we can indeed open clubs, and that we should look at opening clubs as a separate item, not as part of the Lieutenant Governor's role.
Point taken.
Can I add my 2 cents, Vice Governor Pam?
Sure, DG Bob.
The forum from tonight was very interesting. I think a lot of good topics were touched and things that are really should be addressed. And in my opinion, you know, as a past governor, it has a lot to do with fairness, transparency, honesty, integrity of all, you know, by doing the right thing. And I think that is the only way we can make sure that we have the right reports and the right distinction for each and everyone who really deserves it, because in fact, those that work gets it. But I think where you will have to look into, and I think that is in the district's criteria, I think once there's a couple of clubs that does the work and the division gets distinguished, when the division gets distinguished, certain clubs that are below charter strength or has not financially paid their dues, you know, there could be several other reasons get distinguished. You can also have the fact that there is maybe a president that didn't fulfill his work as a president, or an LG didn't fulfill his position as an LG. They all get distinguished. And I think that is one part I think that you should look into to see how you can play around with that, to see how you can get it worked out a little better. My 2 cents.
Thank you very much. Very important too. You know, Mary, I just want to bring this point to you. There's a club that I coach, and they have a wonderful program, a wonderful breakfast program going. They work very hard. It's a small club, new club, but they work tirelessly at that particular program. And just because their signature project did not go in on time, somebody seemed to have missed the time and the project did not go on time. That club immediately knew that they are not going to be distinguished. And we are just in the, well, that was at the end of December. So by the end of the first quarter, they already know that they're not going to be distinguished. But thank God it has not deterred the president. He is working real hard just the same with her club. But it's just unfortunate. And so these are some of the things that we really need to look at.
Well, BG, that's exactly what you were talking about, when a club can know in December that they have no chance of being distinguished. It's only their commitment that keeps them going, you know. But one of the big problems that we have, it starts with the yearly aim to open X amount of clubs, and each governor wants to open X amount of clubs. In turn, it makes the division bigger, and so the challenges of lieutenant governor become more. You were the last lieutenant governor of 23 East before we went through the split. And now both divisions are almost back to the level that we split 4 years ago. You know,
that's true.
And so that's the bone of the issue that we need to look at. And this is why I think strengthening existing clubs should be the way to go, should be the focus.
But Raleigh, I appreciate what you said, and I have to jump in here because I'm going to tell you. If you look at Division 24 right now, have you assessed Division 24?
No.
Okay, there are 14 clubs there. 9 haven't paid their dues up to last week. And it all stems from being able to pay their dues. You have some clubs with 6 members for over 3 years. They can't grow. Oh, because the leadership isn't there. Right? So it's a very complicated issue, and it has to be addressed by leadership. Right? We have to train better leaders so that they can. How can a club, and I go back, how are you going to invite people to a membership of 6 or 7? Who wants to join that club? Nobody wants. So as LG Carlin said, it's better that you start a new club.
Agreed. Agreed.
Okay, I want to ask a question. Pam, I don't know how capable you are of answering this, but between past Governor Phil and Bobby, they should be able to put an answer in place. This matter of the very large number of clubs associated with a division, Is it typically a Jamaica issue, or do you get that in Canada? And what about the other Caribbean islands?
It's the reverse in Canada. We have some divisions with 3 or 4 clubs. My opinion, and this is just my opinion, is that divisions with 3 or 4 clubs should merge with the closest division territorially to them so that they can have one LG despite the travel issues, but you've got travel issues everywhere, especially in the Southern Caribbean. So put the divisions together, merge them, work on developing some synergy amongst the clubs, hold an open DCM that allows everybody to get acquainted with each other and start anew. Because what we're doing these days in Canada is spinning our wheels, trying to open clubs, like you said, like Bobby said, with 6 or 7 members. It's an impossible task. We're just better off to close those clubs, start a new club, or develop a strategic plan where we can start a new club with 25 members or more in that community by starting afresh and attracting the millennials that Hugh Reid was talking about. So there's a lot of issues and there's a lot of intangibles floating in the air during a fiscal year of a district like ours, which has so many cultures.
Can I offer another suggestion?
Sure.
You see, if the club has 6 members and they are open-minded and willing, there is a way that you could start a satellite club and attach it to the 6 members. But those 6 members have to be open to diversity in terms of people, different type of people, different communities. That is what has to be done. And let me tell you this, Gen Z, which is the next group of people that we have to deal with, are not gonna take the old way.
But Bobby, that 6-member club cannot continue to exist.
Well, that's what I feel too. But I know several LGs have tried and it's not going anywhere.
But when you talk about leadership, that's where leadership, the rubber hits the road. That's where a true leader in Kiwanis has got to have the heart and the willpower to make it happen. Because otherwise we're just going to continue on the same way we've done for years and years and never change anything that we've done. It's like we're doing the same old thing year in, year out. If we don't change, we're not going to exist. Certainly not in Eastern Canada.
In fact,
PG Phil,
Go ahead.
I believe Bobby hit the nail on the head best. The real problem is that we have attracted members that cannot afford the dues. The real problem is that people are not, if we had 100 clubs and they could pay their dues and they could have more hands that make the world light, we wouldn't be having this kind of discussion. The challenge is because we have attracted members that are not able to afford the movement. Whether we want to say, okay, the movement is
in the race to be distinguished, Carolyn.
It is the race to be distinguished, but the real problem why we're having the problem is because clubs are feeling the pressure because they are not able to pay the dues. I don't know if we could have a year where we say, okay, for this year, let's close our clubs that cannot manage. Could we have a gap year where we allow persons to die gracefully? And then we start again, and then we say, okay, who can manage? Let's group up. Let's do this. But the biggest challenge is the money, is that we are not able to afford it.
Well, remember now, Caroline, that KI facilitated clubs that didn't have to pay dues.
Yeah, but what about the increase in dues now, Bobby?
No, I'm coming to that, Bob. But what I'm saying is that, in fact, there was a plan that clubs we would try to coerce members into joining the club free and then next year they would be, they would get the dues from them. But remember, the culture is not the same in the Caribbean as in the US. So it backfired on our district, right? I just, it's very important that history is recalled, I recall in Godfrey Dyer's year, we had over 12,000 members, and they primarily came from Canada. Now the reverse is taking place. We are at about 8,000 plus. At least almost
8,000 members.
Yes, are from the Caribbean.
Yeah.
But there was the year when the district had 12 clubs open and 11 was from Jamaica.
Exactly.
That's 2 years ago.
Exactly.
I think it's about 2 to 1. We have about 2 Caribbean members to every Canadian member. That's about the ratio we are now.
Yes. And the reason is we addressed it. Gen Zs are not coming into the Canadian clubs because the Canadian club continue to meet for breakfast or lunch. Now, how many people can meet for lunch or breakfast?
Yeah.
That have a job. It just don't make sense.
True.
Everybody, I have to leave. I have to leave.
We'll have to leave shortly, but the audience,
guess
let's
what?
take one last comment from you, dear audience, because I have to go also.
Right. I am just thinking that as Jamaican, I think we need a forum like this for ourselves to look at the issues we're having with our clubs, specifically the non-payment of dues, and to see how we can revitalize some of these clubs. Maybe the 6 members in that club with DG Bobby is only the 6 people who can afford to pay the dues.
Yeah.
I remember being in a forum and it was mentioned by a member of a club out of the US that her club does not call it membership dues, but they call it club dues. And they found creative ways of paying the club dues. I think we need to meet, we need to look at it. And to finish, when I was LG, my proudest moment was revitalizing a club. And I remember driving every week to that club and bringing back that club. And that was one of the reasons I became a club coach, because I like doing those things. So I think we need to meet and we need to see how best we can bring back some of our clubs and how best we can get the club members to pay their dues.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
The audience, I'm gonna throw the charge to our PLG chair, or All Island PLG chair, Llewellyn Allen, who is still with us, that maybe he could have that forum. Thanks, everyone. It was a wonderful afternoon. Great ideas passed.
Yeah,
Somebody calling to me?
Yeah, just to respond to audience. We do have forums, but we don't use the forums properly. Our DCMs were designed to have these discussions, but all we have is reports and reports and reports and reports.
From 9 o'clock till 4.
And I know Debbie, for example, had a couple sessions in her year, but that is the purpose of DCMs, a forum where we get together as a division and discuss the issues affecting division, but we don't do that. And I think so maybe our LGs, we look at how we run their DCMs.
But also, can I just say too that the All Island Convention should be designed to have that sort of
agree 100%.
Okay. Let me just say.
Okay, Father of Kiwanis,
greetings, everyone. I've listened intently.
Greetings,
I think this was an excellent forum. And as a suggestion has been made that we should organize something like this for Jamaica. We have challenges and we need to correct it. There's an overall challenge for the district, but certainly we at this local level should look at our own situation.
Thanks, DLG Lloyd. And with that, I'm telling you,
Amen.
it was a wonderful
Good
evening.
night.
I have to go. We have to respect DP Stefan's time. It's Sunday, and I'm sure he wants to share the rest of the evening with his family. So please be understanding. Thank you, everyone, and bye.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. It's with my dog, but okay.
I miss Judes.
Yes, you can eat.
Ah, that's me.